All right, so last video I spoke about King David, Solomon's father, like everyone knew who he was. Apparently, not everyone does know who he was, but if you've ever heard of the story of David and Goliath, that's who he was. Was that David. For those of you who don't know the story, the Israelites were up against the Philistines. So basically it was one army on one side, one army on the other side. Normally they'd clash and bang, 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 what. But the Philistines had a big guy, a giant. So they let him taunt the Israelites. And he said, you know what? You don't even have to get anybody on my side. You're just one-on-one. Just bring out somebody. I'll fight them. If they win, we're your servants. If we win, you're our servants. So Goliath, taunted Israel and their God. And David, who was visiting his brothers because he was just a young boy, he was a shepherd boy, came to the king and said, are you going to let him, badmouth our God like that? Well, I'm going to go out and deal with him. I've fought bears, I've fought lions. I'm going to go out and deal with that guy. So Saul, the first king of Israel, said to David, okay, take my armor. So they put a grown man's armor on this teenage boy, and it wasn't working. David said, don't worry, I got this. Ran out, grabbed a couple of pebbles in his slingshot, nailed Goliath in the head, took him down, cut off his head, and the Philistines were like, so there you go. That's what David is known for, other than having a heart after God's own heart. So even though he committed a lot of bad things, the one that comes to mind is David with Bathsheba. Now, he saw her from the palace having a bath on the roof and decided that he wanted to sleep with her. Once she became pregnant, he tried to get her husband from the army to come and sleep with her. Then, nobody would know anything about, him fooling around with her, adultery and everything like that. He didn't have relations with her, basically, so he was sent back to the front line. David sent word to the commanders, okay, send him up to the front line, and when he's there, everybody take a step back. So basically, David committed premeditated murder. That part, not many people, the average person doesn't know, but yeah, David slept with Bathsheba and then ended up first-degree murdering her husband. The baby that they had together ended up dying in childbirth. David was devastated. He repented. He kneeled before God. Actually, he prostrated himself out on the floor. He was down. He was out. He did everything he could to save that child, but because it was a sin, that wasn't going to happen. So there's another thing that David is known for. So there you go. You've got David and Goliath, David and Bathsheba, but David was a man after God's own heart. So he knew what God wanted, the creator of the universe. He knew what needed to be done. So he did it. And he knew if he did something wrong, he knew he had to repent. He knew he had to ask for forgiveness. So that's how tight David and God were. So then you get involved with Solomon and God. It's just another story. Again, mind-blowing. All right, so David has passed away at a good old age. So God comes to Solomon in the night. So God calls to Solomon and says, ask whatever you want, and I'll give it to you. Solomon says, you've shown great kindness to your servant, my father David. because he was faithful and righteous to you and had an upright heart. You have continued with great kindness to him and have given him a son to sit on his throne every day. Now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David. So basically, Solomon's acknowledging that his kinghood came from God. But I am only a child and do not know how to carry out my duties. Your servant is here among people you have chosen, a great people, too numerous to count. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours? And it says here in 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 10, that the Lord was pleased with Solomon for what he asked for. So God said to him, since you have asked for this and not for long life or wealth, nor have you asked for the death of your enemies, I will give you the wisdom that you ask. And I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never be anyone like you, nor will there ever be. So think about it. Think of how smart Stephen Hawking was. Tyson, Bill Gates, even Elon Musk, Einstein. It says in the Bible that there will never be anyone as wise as Solomon. So that's where you get the quote, the wisdom of Solomon. So not only did God give him wisdom, he gave him money, he gave him long life, he gave him peace, he subdued the enemies around him. It says here that he gave him both riches and honor, so that in his lifetime there will be no equal among the kings. And I gotta say, other kings and other queens came to visit Solomon to see if the rumors of his wisdom was true. And it was. The Queen of Sheba came from Ethiopia to find out if what she had heard was true. And it was. And she praised God and offered offerings to him. But here's one here. So after Solomon had taken reign, he was the king for a while, and the king settled disputes at times. It says, now 2 prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. One of them said, my lord, this woman and I live in the same house. I had a baby while she was there with me. And on the 3rd day, after my child was born, this woman also had a baby. And we were alone. There was no one in the house but the 2 of us. During the night, this woman's son died because she lay on him. So she got up in the middle of the night and took my son from me. While your servant was asleep, she put him to her breast and put her dead son at my breast. The next morning I got up to nurse, and he was dead. But when I looked at him closely in the morning, I saw that he was not my son. So of course, the other woman said, no, that's not right. That's not how that happened. Your son died, and that's all there was to it. And now you want my son. Now, this is cool. Solomon got to decide whose son this was. He basically said, put the baby on the steps. Somebody give me a sword. So they put the baby on the steps. I guess one of the guards gave him a sword. He said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this baby in half, and I'm going to give you half, and I'm going to give you half, because we can't figure this out. And the one woman said, well, that sounds fair to me. And then the other woman said, no, wait, no, don't. She can have the baby. Don't harm the baby. Solomon looked at her and said, pick up your baby. Because what mother would want her baby cut in half just for spite? I thought, man, mind blown. And that was part of the wisdom of Solomon. He was pretty smart. I mean, Bible says there was no one like him, and there will be no one like him. Every generation seems to think that they're smarter than the one before. How many things have been lost that we have no idea about? A lot more than we know. Think about it.